Okay, so Euphoria Season 3 is currently airing, and everyone is suddenly saying what I've been saying since Season 1, that this show is fundamentally kind of dumb. And look, I want to be fair here, I've said style over substance about this show from the jump. Go back to one of the earliest reviews on this channel, same take. So this isn't me piling on because it's popular to hate it now. I just think this season finally makes it impossible to look away from the problem, because the problem has always been there, and now it has nowhere left to hide. So let's establish what we're actually dealing with. Season 3 makes a 5-year time jump, meaning these characters are no longer in the safety net of school. They're in their mid-20s now. And that's actually the core premise issue right away. This was always a high school show, over the top, extremely graphic, extremely edgy, but contained by that setting. Now the container is gone, and you can already feel the show kind of flailing around trying to figure out what it even is. Is it a crime show, a coming-of-age story? They've already come of age. Is it a character drama? Sort of, but not really. And critics have noted that adulthood, according to Euphoria, is a miserable exercise in futility, a bleak experience where nobody actually grows up. And that nihilism turns out to be a pretty weak foundation for a show otherwise well-positioned to reinvent itself. That's the thing. This could have been a reinvention, but it's not. So the premiere episode opens with Rue stuck in Mexico. She's literally stuck in her car on the border wall, just like how the show is still stuck in the same cycle as always. Rue's still running from her debt to drug lord Lori, and now she's working as a drug mule, swallowing roughly 150 balloons of heroin or cocaine to smuggle across the border. There's a whole sequence where she ends up stranded on top of the border wall in her Jeep, teetering like a seesaw. It looks cool, and it means nothing. She eventually makes it to California, gets connected with a strip club magnate named Alamo, who sits in a hot tub wearing a cowboy hat surrounded by women, and tells Rue she walked up into my house, danced with my girls, and didn't even introduce herself. And this is where the Tarantino cosplay fully kicks in. The Western aesthetic, the monologuing crime boss, the snappy dialogue. Sam Levinson wants this to be Breaking Bad or Pulp Fiction so badly. But when you strip away the cowboy hat and the Hans Zimmer score, what's actually happening? Rue owes a woman money, she became a drug mule, she met a cooler criminal, that's it. Meanwhile, the other main plot of episode 1, Cassie wants a $50,000 floral package for her upcoming wedding to Nate. He won't pay for it, so she proposes starting an OnlyFans. Nate reluctantly agrees as long as she never shows her face and her chest in the same photo. Here's my issue with that. The moral debate around OnlyFans is it empowering? Is it degrading? What does it mean for a relationship? That is like a conversation that peaked in like 2021. It's 2026. The fact that this is being presented as edgy, provocative television in the first episode of what's supposed to be the show's big final statement is embarrassing. This is not a fresh idea. It's not even a particularly interesting one anymore. And yet the whole episode orbits around it like it's scandalous. And then episode 2 is largely about nostalgia, the push-pull between looking back at adolescence through rose-tinted glasses and figuring out who you are now. Early in the episode, Rue says she actually misses high school, but what she actually misses, as the show frames it, is the petty drama that used to run in the background. The problem is that sentence describes the audience too. We miss the contained chaos of East Highland High, and the show knows it, so it keeps gesturing back to that era through flashbacks and voiceover instead of actually building something new. Maddie gets the Rue voiceover treatment this episode. We get a montage of how she went from high school to talking her way into a Hollywood talent agency without a college degree. There's also the first mention of the pandemic, with the detail that Maddie's mother lost her salon during COVID, which is why Maddie is now supporting her financially. And that kind of detail is interesting. There's something real there, the weight of being the kid who had to grow up and carry the family, but the show doesn't sit with it. It just drops it in and keeps moving. Rue, meanwhile, is now working at Alamo's Silver Stripper nightclub, and we meet a stripper named Angel who she quickly becomes romantically involved with. Notice the pacing here. One episode in, Rue has escaped Mexico, gotten a job with a new crime boss, and now she's in a relationship. By the end of episode 2, Angel's friend has died of a fentanyl overdose. The drugs Rue originally delivered were laced, and Rue is rushing Angel into rehab. This is the biggest structural problem with the season. Stuff that should take 6 episodes to develop is happening in 1. You introduce a character, make her sympathetic, put her through immediate tragedy, and resolve the immediate emotional fallout all within an hour. Why would I feel anything? I don't even know this person yet. And then we get to episode 3. This is the one that broke the internet a little, and it's the one I really want to dig into because it's the perfect encapsulation of what's wrong with this show. The season's big centerpiece event so far, Cassie and Nate's wedding, happens in episode 3. Episode 3 of 8. Most shows would spend an entire season building toward that moment. And maybe there's more to come, but I'm just talking about how campy the show is. The reunion of all these characters in one place, the old tensions resurfacing, the drama. Sam Levinson blows through it by episode 3. Jules opens the episode in a flashback. We learn about her origin story as a sugar baby, how a roommate at art school introduced her to it as like just dating, except, you get paid. And look, the shots are beautiful. Hunter Schafer's compelling to watch as always, but this is a 10-minute cold open that introduces a storyline that doesn't really pay it off within the episode itself. It just looks nice and sets her up. That's all. Beautiful packaging, empty inside. And now the toes scene. A loan shark named Naz shows up at the wedding, a character Nate is deeply indebted to as he's been chasing some real estate venture, and at the end of the night demands $500,000. And then Naz cuts off Nate's toe on his wedding night. And it's presented as this brutal Tarantino-esque moment of consequences catching up to you. But here's the problem. Naz wasn't even invited to the wedding. He was barely introduced before this. He shows up, makes a threat, and immediately follows through on it within essentially the same episode. For a scene like that, you need it to land. You need it to feel earned. You need to have spent the whole season dreading this guy. You need scenes where he's in the background. You need Nate looking over his shoulder for weeks. You need the audience to understand exactly what kind of a person this is before he shows up with a blade at a wedding reception. Instead, Naz is introduced and becomes a threat within what feels like 48 hours of screen time. It's a moment that's supposed to feel brutal and dark and upsetting. It's their wedding day as Cassie cries, but it just feels campy and ridiculous. And look, I'll be fair, Sam Levinson has said that this season is about actions having consequences, and you can only outrun your mistakes for so long. This is a compelling thematic premise, Sam, but a theme only works if the story gives it room to breathe. You can't introduce a consequence before the audience has fully absorbed the mistake. That's not drama, it's just events happening. So here's what I think this season really is. It's the show's aesthetic impulses fully untethered from anything keeping them honest. In season 1, the extreme visuals and graphic content were anchored by the specificity of high school, the trans experience, the addiction arc, the peer pressure dynamics. These were things teenagers actually navigate, even if they were being depicted in the most over-the-top way possible. The first 2 seasons had teens masquerading as adults. Season 3 has those same characters actually being adults, and the show has no idea what to do with that. The jobs alone tell you everything. Maddie is working at a Hollywood talent agency. Jules is a sugar baby. Lexi's a TV assistant running coffee for Sharon Stone's showrunner character. Rue is literally now an arms dealer working with Alamo's crew to move weapons into Mexico. Arms dealer! Zendaya is playing an arms dealer on a show that started as a high school drama about drug addiction. If you told me that in 2019, I would not have believed you. None of these trajectories connect thematically. They're each serving the visual aesthetic of the episode they're in, not a coherent story about something. And yet the cinematography this season is great. The brighter color palette, actually is a great creative choice after 2 seasons of darkness. It creates contrast, it creates unease. The Hans Zimmer score is sweeping and gorgeous. Zendaya reportedly shot her entire season's worth of scenes in half the usual timeline, and somehow she still gives a great performance. The cast is not really the problem. The problem is that the show returns with less than the sum of its parts, a disjointed cavalcade of forced narratives that leave its talented cast stranded in the wind. Look, I'm not here to tell you to watch it. It's fun to put on. The wedding episode has sequences that work well. There are individual scenes that crackle, but fun to watch and actually good are not the same thing, and Euphoria has been confusing the two since the beginning. Season 3 has the lowest critical score in the show's history, and honestly, I think people are finally being honest about what this show has always been: a gorgeous, technically impressive, fundamentally shallow series that mistakes darkness for depth and aesthetics for meaning. When you strip away the Hans Zimmer and the slow motion and the Western lighting and ask, okay, but what is this about? And the answer is Rue owes some money and Cassie is an OnlyFans and Nate got his toe cut off by a guy we met 2 scenes ago. That's not a show saying something. That's a show looking like it's saying something. And there's a difference. There has always been with Euphoria. I said it in season 1. I'll say it now. Style over substance. The final season.